for the 5th round of the championship. Another fantastic start from Liceta, and there's contact as he pulls across the circuit and gets it into Lucas Batt. But I think they've got away with that. But Liceta, just like yesterday, making by far the best start. But there were just too many cars around him on this occasion to make particular progress, and he just brushed the side of Lucas Batt's car. But they've got away with that, thankfully. I don't think with any damage of any sort, so that's good news. But that's all allowed the winner from yesterday, the former low-cost champion, Ma7da, to lead. Liceta's now got second, though, away from Daniel Simmons. So that aggressive start for Liceta has kind of worked out still for him, Johnny.
Yeah, it's not always advisable, in truth, but they did breathe in and just about came out of it unscathed or without any lasting consequences. Liceta, really good run up the hill, but he's going to lose out potentially here on Daniel Simmons, who started ahead of him on the grid. Simmons will have to go the high side around, though, and he can't make it work through the second bit of Rocket. So Liceta hanging on for second position. What this is doing, though, is allowing Martin West to disappear up the road. There's Martin, about 4 or 5 car lengths ahead as they are virtually 3 abreast, exiting Peel, tumbling their way down towards Siemens now, that awkward left-hander which is slightly off camber on the downhill approach. So onto Tom Price straight they go for the first time. It's important to gap the rest of your field where possible, and Martin West has started very early with that challenge.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Johnny. So he's pulled clear of Liceta. A big look up at the rear of the field there for 10, I think that was, which is Ian Deeves, who's new this weekend, as he tries to keep up with the rest of the pack that's headed. Well, Martin West isn't really in the pack, is he? He's so far ahead of John Liceta, who's under pressure, and Daniel Simmons, who had a great run out of the final corner, is on the inside line. And Daniel Simmons, the wind turbine engineer from Lincoln, takes second place as West hooks a wheel over the grass there. That hasn't affected him terribly, though, with this lead gap he has over the pack of a couple of seconds, with Simmons now second, Liceta third, fourth David Mason getting involved as well now. So David Mason round the outside and pulled clear of Liceta. Has Liceta got a problem? Because he's just lost 2 places in very quick succession. Or was he just offline? No, he hasn't got the straight line speed. So last year's champion, the championship leader, is slowing. I don't think Jonathan Liceta's going to finish this race. You can see him pulling a big spin for Daniel Simmons, and I'm afraid he's going to hit the barriers at a fair rate of speed. But it looks like Daniel, I think, was still moving in the car there, so that's a good sign. And David Mason, I think that's the car he came into contact with, who has also ended up off the circuit as well. But a large incident there on the run up towards Rocket, and the tow makes it for exciting racing, Johnny. But sometimes perhaps the cars change in speed a bit more than the drivers realise there.
And obviously, at the time, we were concentrating on Jonathan Liceta's lack of speed, but the contact had happened just ahead of them. Liceta's still got his elbows out, by the way, being covered by local yellows at the moment. But what I don't like is that the tyres that Simmons hit have now been left away from the Armco barrier.
He's getting out of the car, Johnny, so that's good news. There he is, you can see on the screen now. It's a very damaged car, but Daniel's okay, so that's the best thing of that incident, so that's good news.
But it is a safety car, and I thought as much, because we've got bare Armco now exposed because the tyres have been pulled away. So yellows being shown all the way around the circuit. Yeah, nasty incident that. Not one I particularly enjoyed watching, because we could see what was going to happen from a long way off. And unfortunately for Daniel, he had his back to the tyre wall, so he didn't quite know where the impact was going to be made.
No, that's absolutely right. And luckily no one else got caught up in that very high speed. There you can see the damaged tyre wall as well, because that's all happened before the braking zone, I would suggest. So a speed in probably over 100 miles per hour across potentially damp grass as well. Into one row of tyres before you get into the Armco barriers. Whereas Daniel's out of the car, and okay, we're going to show you a replay and try and work out what happened, because it all happened at such a speed it was hard to tell at the time. So we've already seen Jonathan Liceta slow down, so he was out of the battle. Mason got alongside Simmons, and they just came together. One driver, I think, going towards the left, the other driver going towards the right, and the car didn't slow down much at all. But damage to the rear of the car. But obviously the safety features on these Ma7das were enough to show that Daniel Simmons was able to climb out of the car unaided. Because, though, of that damage to the barriers, the race control have made the decision that red flag is necessary, as you said, Johnny, It was now an uncovered barrier basically up there. We've seen for the restart of the 5th round of the AimShop.com. Ma7da 7s nowadays on Toyo tyres, new for this season, on a potentially increasingly wet circuit as the race gets underway, and Lister, after talking up his starts, he's not got away as well as Martin West has. So Martin West will lead into turn 1 then, with Lister second, David Mason in third, Bowen and Ma7da side by side. There's more rain on our camera lens down at the bank, and it's looking up for Martin West. Perhaps there's not quite so much tyre temperature he was expecting. There's a big moment for Imran Khan, who has somehow gained positions by sliding across the grass on the inside of the circuit, but he may lose momentum on the exit. But it is West End that leads through the right-hander at Church Corner, and now a voyage up to the top of the circuit. A big spin in the background for Martin Shelton, who slides across the grass on the inside of the circuit. So perhaps, as you would suggest, Johnny, with low tyre temperatures and a raining outlook to the circuit, there is not as much grip as some drivers were hoping for.
And no green flag lap. You don't have one in this championship with treaded tyres, so there's no exploratory lap, if you like. You can't get a feel for where the grip is, and more crucially, isn't. So for the race leader, I mean, he's keeping it on the island in fairness, but this is a little bit of a launch into the unknown for Martin West.
I wonder what hypercar drivers would say to doing this. Anyway,
they needed to have driven Ma7da 7s a little more. Antonio Fuoco, I'm looking at you. Carry on, Josh.
So the race carries on with Martin West leading from John Lister and David Mason as they turn their way down towards the hairpin. Lucas Batt is there in 4th position. In 5th is Bowen. 6th, a good start here for Daniel Court. Obviously gained one when Martin Shelton spun, but I think he's gained some more as well during the course of this opening lap. So the track still looks pretty dry despite the rain that is coming down, with West sliding out over the curb, and he spins towards the pit wall. He manages to grab a gear, but that means he shoots back across the circuit. There's cars going either side of him at this stage, and I think everybody, let's hope, let's not talk too soon. Yeah, everybody's got through, and Martin West has now got back going. The track may not be as damp, maybe the curbs are, though, the painted curbs.
Big time, and they also hold water because they're ridged, and he decided to go up on the curve, which is a dangerous game in the wet weather, and maybe he just wasn't quite as knowledgeable as we were how much it had been raining. So we've got a completely new complexion to the race now, with Lister side by side with Mason sneaking through into the race lead. There was a moment there where the spinner thought he might be able to, Martin West thought he might be able to rejoin very quickly indeed, then knew that was a bad idea, jumped on the brakes, and for a brief time that certainly got my adrenaline going. Sitting in the middle of the road broadside, thankfully everyone obeying and seeing in time the double waved yellow flags.
Yesterday, Johnny, you were wondering if the weather might spice up proceedings here today at Anglesey, and this race would suggest perhaps they may do. We've only had a lap and a half, and plenty has happened during the course of that. So it's Mason who leads. A big challenge there from Ben Powney to grab 4th. He's behind Jonathan Lister, and Lucas Batt is there in 3rd place. This is a great effort from Lucas, who only started racing last year, and he's going with the top 2 in these tricky conditions. Then Powney is getting another place. He's got up the inside of David Bowen, who's another very new driver to racing, as is that driver there, Callum Barnes. It was only a couple of seasons ago when Callum started racing he would tend to get lapped, but now he's right in this front group, so it's great to see that progress from drivers like Callum. And the leader, though, is still David Mason as they turn their way out the final corner. Again, though, he used the curb. He saw what happened to West earlier, so he didn't apply the throttle, but what that means is Jonathan Lister is all over the back of him, Johnny.
Yeah, curbs are a great idea in the dry, but it really is going to unsettle a car, and David Mason was far braver than I might have been, coming out of bus stop and had at least half the car width all over those blue and yellow painted curbs. Jonathan Lister staying off on the asphalt more likely, and he's actually getting better drive off the corners in these halfway house conditions. Not fully wet, not fully dry. Lister's good exit surely will give him a much better run at the race lead. They're side by side, but I think Lister will have the position before they need to hit the brakes at the top of the hill. He will. So Jonathan Lister now leading into Rocket.
He's not yet with them. In 4th place, Ben Powney is the quickest driver. He is with them now, actually. He was a second plus behind the lead battle at the start of the lap, but joining them now is Ben Powney, who's not really been there at the front all weekend, despite getting the fastest lap yesterday, that he's joining in now what is a 4-car lead battle. There he is, 37 then. Ben Powney, who does so much promotion for this championship. He's got so much passion for the Mazda 7 category. He sold his Jedi single-seater so he could concentrate on that this year, as well as racing this Mazda 7. And the grids have been growing with Ben's assistance, but he would so much like to be on the top step of a podium again, because he hasn't been there over the last few races, well, not just this year, but last year as well. But it is Liciter then, who won all 3 races at Croft, who's back ahead of David Mason with 5 minutes on the clock, Johnny. It could well change yet.
Yeah, 4 for the lead. Just less than 5 minutes to go. We might eke out an extra lap as well, depending on where the cars are around this 2.1 circuit when the clock hits 0. Over the line goes the race leader, John Liciter then, ahead of David Mason now by 0.6 of a second, but Mason to Lucas Batt is absolutely nothing at all, and Ben Powney trying to apply the pressure merely with his presence into a tricky braking area for the banking, and also the exit looked pretty dicey as well, as proved by Ben Powney there. Thankfully nobody right on his boot lid ready to pounce, but Powney's lost some ground now on Lucas Batt in 3rd position. Larger gap back to David Bowen, who's fighting with Simon Court and Daniel Court.
Not far behind them is Martin West, who's back to 9th already with the fastest lap of the race, a 1:42.9. That's only 1 second slower than yesterday, so even though it may be raining, the track conditions are still pretty good. Maybe if you use too much curb, as Martin found out, it's a little bit more slippery there, but there's good lap time. And he is the quickest driver. How much higher can he get in just the last few laps of the race? What about the leaders? Can Lucas Batt get a podium? That's be a popular result for him if he can manage that. He's still just ahead of Ben Powney. The Court brothers have both passed David Bowen since Johnny described the order to you 2 corners ago. That's how quickly things change in Mazda 7 racing. And Callum Barnes is up there in 8th position, and there's Martin West. He's still pushing on, he's looking up, but Liciter, who tends to be good in these types of conditions, he leads the way. Lucas Batt there in 3rd position with Ben Powney behind. As popular as a podium for Lucas may be in that awning, Ben Powney would quite like to take that 3rd position away.
Sure he would, and he's going to try around the outside into bus stop. He got a very good exit, I noticed, out of hairpin, and he's side by side, but Powney forced up the curb. Thankfully there was a bit more grip there than Martin West found a couple of laps ago. It's also side by side behind, with Simon Court battling with Daniel Court, and they have still Callum Barnes for company. Powney to the outside, he seems to like that approach into the banking. And this first hairpin on the lap does offer more grip and speed on the outside line, more so than the hairpin. So Powney now to the outside of Church Corner can carry more speed again, being on that higher line. And it's going to work for him, I think. No, in fact, as I say that, here comes Lucas Batt on the fight back inside line at School, and should just about retain 3rd position. But we've got the braking area for Rocket to come next, Josh.
That's right, we should have this lap plus 1 more, I think, out of this race. And Powney, again, looking to the inside, again, unable to get ahead then of Lucas Batt, who's hanging on for dear life to stay on this 3rd position. Still on the podium, but as I say that, he gets a big handful of opposite lock, and that is enough for Ben Powney to slot through and get ahead then of Lucas Batt. So it took a little while, but Ben Powney up to 3rd. But in all of that, that has allowed Jonathan Liciter and David Mason to pull clear up front.
Patient driving then for those 2. I thought there was a hint of a green flag being waved at Siemens Corner, which would indicate maybe something's happened at Peel, perhaps only a half spin. All the key runners are still very much present. So coming out of the 2nd hairpin on the lap, John Liciter now having opened up that gap, helped of course by Martin West's earlier spin, so you don't have the really rapid 94 car duking it out for the lead. They'll head across the line now with 1:17 to go, which is well short of a lap time, so this should be the final lap now for Liciter. The confirmation of Ben Powney being ahead of Lucas Batt on our scoring tower to the left of your shot, and also Martin West gains another position on that lap, I should say, getting ahead of the number 3 of Callum Barnes.
And Ben Powney's immediately caught David Mason, so he could yet get 2nd out of this if he has a good final lap to this race. But Liciter continuing this strong form he had over last year into this year. looking for his 4th victory in 5 races. There is West, right behind David Bowen, so he might get 7th. He may get 6th or 5th before the end. At the pace he has, he'll be so frustrated with that moment he had out over the curbs. He had the lead at that stage. He's getting a 7th position now, away then from David Bowen. Martin West almost didn't make the start of the season because when he shook down this car 2 weeks before Croft, it got smashed up at Brands Hatch. He managed to rebuild it with the help of his dad before that one. He had a small mechanical moment at Croft, which meant he didn't finish one of the races there. It's been really quick. He's actually just lost 7th place as he slides out over the curves as David Bowen gets back ahead of him. The driver from Kent, who only started racing, I think, at this meeting towards the end of last year. But Simon Court, he's just ahead of his brother Daniel Court for what is 5th position as they make their way towards the end of the Tom Price Straight. And Martin West again is trying to get himself ahead of David Bowen, which may not be working as well as he thought it would have been at this stage. But into the final corner, Jonathan Lisseter will win for the 4th time this season, and a big punch for the air for the winner. And for 2nd place, it's pretty much a dead heat between Ben Powney and David Mason. We'll see initially who that is given to. It's a dead heat at this stage, so we will wait and see when the timekeepers look back at that who is in front, because at this stage it's just given it to Powney because his number is lower than David Mason's. But at this stage it is a dead heat for 2nd place. 4th went the way of Lucas Batt, 5th for Simon Court, 6th for 5th for Daniel Court, 6th for Simon Court, so Daniel got ahead there into the last corner. Martin West did get 7th away from David Bowen. Callum Barnes took 9th. And it's another top 10 finish for Imran Khan. A new fastest lap on that last lap for Powney, which was 0.01 of a second slower than yesterday's fastest lap. So that would suggest, Johnny, the track conditions are actually okay.
They were getting better, I think. So we had the rain shower before the restart. That meant that the track surface was very greasy indeed, as Martin West found, well, particularly up on the painted curbs. But it was improving because of the top, let's say 15 cars. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 improvements, personal bests, or indeed in the case of Ben Powney, an absolute best final lap.
Ben Powney's been given 2nd, so that's been sorted out.
I thought he was just ahead, but we're talking hair's breadth stuff, and as you said, down to 2 decimal places, you couldn't initially split them.
Yeah, that's right. So the timekeepers have looked at that. But there's the winner. Again, it's Jonathan Lisseter, who is a victor in the AimShop.com Ma7da 7 Championship.
Nicely saved.
Let's see if we can take a look at the results. So it was a victory for Jonathan Lisseter by a couple of seconds. At one point, he looked like he was going to retire from the race, but he's a race winner. 2nd went to Ben Powney, who fought his way through up ahead of David Mason by the smallest of margins. Lucas Batt took 4th, a best for him. 5th went to Daniel Court, ahead of his brother Simon. 7th was Martin West, who has been so strong all weekend but had the spin. David Bowen 8th, 9th for Callum Barnes and 10th for Imran Khan. Ethan Rogers, Peter Wood, Lewis Penstone Smith and Matt Groh were also finishers. As was Martin Shelton, Ian Deves and Steve Groves, and best wishes to Daniel Sibbons after the incident we saw in the first part of the race. He was the only retirement despite the somewhat tricky conditions. So that's all we're going to see this weekend from the AimShop.com Ma7da 7 Championship, but that will continue at Mallory Park in 4 weeks' time. That bodes for an exciting day of racing, I suspect, on that short circuit with lots of slipstreaming. Cadwell Park, Brands Hatch and Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit will conclude the season for the AimShop.com Ma7da 7 Championship, but an increased championship lead for Jonathan Lisseter going into that meeting at Mallory Park. I reckon 23 points, a big hit advantage, almost a race-winning number of points. So Lisseter, definitely the form man, as we've already gone past 1/3 distance in the championship. It feels like we only started 4 weeks ago. And Andy McEwen has ventured out into the conditions downstairs to chat, not just to Jonathan Lisseter, but to Ben Powney and David Mason as well.
Well worth the wait, that. Helps if I turn the microphone on, doesn't it? Brilliant second race of the weekend, that, for the Ma7da 7 Championship. A double race victory for Jonathan Lister, but you had to work hard for that one.
Yeah, I mean, the first race start, something went wrong with the engine. I had a problem with it and it just lost power, and I thought, oh no, that's it, that's game over. But then all of a sudden it seemed to clean through, and then there was that unfortunate incident with the red flag, but that kind of saved my day, really. And yeah, I mean, I was looking forward to a good race, and unfortunately Martin made a bit of a mistake. But yeah, no, after that I just gapped everybody, which is great.
Difficult conditions, it seemed, certainly immediately after the restart. Obviously, we saw Martin's big moment at the final corner. I bet that caught your attention.
Yeah, it did me a favour. I just said don't go on the curbs. So yeah, no, that was helpful. But yeah, I just got to say thanks to the TSR boys and all my sponsors, Hill and everyone. So yeah, it was a brilliant day, brilliant weekend. Thank you.
Fantastic stuff. Jonathan Lister then extending his points advantage. Now, second place in the end, going the way of Ben Powney, who is creeping in behind us. Let's get your car in shot then, Ben, so we get all your sponsors in shot. Fantastic result that for you. A fighting drive, really, because you weren't on for a podium until really the final few minutes.
Yeah, I don't have good starts, to be honest. I guess it's not bad for a number 2 driver as well behind Jono. He's the team man, really, at the moment. But no, I made it hard for myself, but yeah, it was good fun. Could do a bit more rain, but a bit late now, I guess, so yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, it did seem like you really came on strong as the heavens started to open. The guys in commentary were saying how passionate you are about this championship, and it's nice to see it starting to thrive now, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think they're such good fun to drive, the cars, and I think as Jono said yesterday in his interview, if anyone wants to try it, come and give it a go, because you won't regret it. Yeah, super close racing, as you've seen, hopefully. Yeah, it's awesome.
Excellent stuff. We certainly enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Ben Powney. Now, David Mason, third place. Let's get you over near your car, David. Good race that for you there. Third place finish. Could have gone either way, that though, really, couldn't it? It was pretty tight at the front, particularly after that restart.
Yeah, it's me and Simmons come together at the top there, which I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's just a racing thing. Hopefully it was. But yeah, made it for the weekend. To be honest, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, get some good points on the board. So got to say hello to Gabby and the kids, Jackson, Darcy. So got in trouble from the first one. So but yeah, all good.
Any legacy from that contact? Any damage to the car?
I don't think so. No. I think well, 4 wheels, 4 mudguards. So yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, and it's going in the trailer straight. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So happy days.
Yeah, I'm no mechanic, but I think 4 tyres is always a good thing.
Yeah,
so congratulations.